after Kagara incident, the Northern State Governors Forum met in Kaduna in an effort to address the challenges bedeviling the region and Nigeria at large. That was on the 25th of February 2021, with high-profile personalities almost at the highest decision level. The forum resolved, among other things, to work assiduously and jointly with the federal government in tackling the challenges of insecurity in the country, among other concerns. The resolutions were partly in response to recent abductions recorded in schools in the country, which have sustained discussions in the public space connecting with what would have been responsible and how the institutions responsible are handling the challenges in securing our schools. On the second leg discussion tonight, we'll be looking at solutions. Nigeria, being a signatory to the Safe Schools Declaration, ought to have taken steps towards surmounting the problem given the policy in place. As President Muhammadu Buhari joins families and people of the states affected recently in welcoming and celebrating the release of these students, he calls for greater vigilance by the people so that human intelligence could be sourced early to nip the bandits' plans in the bud. He also warned that time has come to reverse completely the grim and heartbreaking incidents of kidnapping and banditry, urging the police and the military to go after these criminals and bring them to justice. These and other stakeholders play in the maintenance and securing of schools in Nigeria besides government. These and more are the issues to be discussed tonight, but after this background report put together by Francis Fom.
In April 2014, Nigerians woke up with the news of the abduction of 276 female students of government secondary school Chibok in Borno State by insurgents who disguised as security guards and invaded the school, getting away with students in a truck to an unknown destination. By May 2017, 88 of the abducted girls regained freedom from the insurgents after following negotiation between the Nigerian government and the terrorist group. In February 2018, another news of abduction of 110 students of Government Science and Technical College Dapchi in Yobe State occupied the media space. After weeks of intense pressure by the Nigerian government, the girls were released just when the country is coming out of shock of student abduction. Another phase of school invasion surfaced. This time, the target is an all-male school where more than 330 students of Government Science Secondary School Kankara in Katsina State were abducted in December 2020 and later released after negotiations. Just when hope of the safe returns of 27 students of Government Science College Kagara in Niger State, 15 officials of the college and their relatives held hostage by armed men dressed in military uniform on 17 February 2021. About 279 students of Government Science Secondary School Jangebi in Talata Mafara local government area of Zamfara State were abducted by armed bandits. It was one abduction too many, and all stakeholders vow to bring to an end such incidents, with President Buhari saying government is committed more than ever before to deal with criminals. The Northern Governors Forum held a meeting with traditional rulers, focusing on security, economy, education, and above all, the development of the region. 2 days later, the Kagara boys were released by their abductors in the early hours of Saturday, 27 February 2021. The 279 abducted students of Government Girls Secondary School Jangabi were released in the early hours of Tuesday following a combined effort of security agencies. Aside from this abduction, pockets of attacks on secondary schools are recorded, like the one on Federal Government College Buniyadi in Yobe State in 2014, killing 21 students. These attacks on schools in the country by criminal elements, experts say, is a wake-up call to managers of educational facilities, especially boarding schools, at fringes of remote towns, as they are increasingly becoming soft targets Stakeholders advise that governments at all levels needs to develop and deploy new strategies to deal with the new threats to the security and safety of children and their education through a comprehensive security approach that will safeguard lives and secure the future of these promising leaders. Francis from
Securing schools in Nigeria, part 2. On the first leg, we looked at what would have been responsible. What will is the way forward? Is the security architecture in Nigeria overwhelmed? On the second leg tonight, we shall be dwelling strictly on the solution and the way forward, given the fact that a lot of engagements have taken place. Well, Francis Form's background sets the tone for the takeoff of the program tonight. And it's Tuesday Live. At some point, our phone lines will be displayed on the screen. And if I talk to you, please go straight to the point and be responsible in your contribution. Raise your questions and make your points. Go straight to the point. Please, in doing this, turn down the volume of your television set to avoid the hallback or echo. Also, you can be part of the discussion tonight through our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA. Send in your tweets, ask your questions, and our team of guests be available to address them. Tonight, I'm being joined first via Zoom in Jos, Plateau State, the Executive Governor of Plateau State and Chairman, Northern Governors Forum, His Excellency Right Honorable Simon Bako Lalong. Good to have you on the program tonight, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Omeni, and good evening, viewers.
So tonight, I'm being joined here in the studio by Dr. Emmanuel Ojukwu, Provost's Public Relations School, Lafia, Police Public Relations School, Lafia, and retired Commissioner of Police. Good to have you on the program tonight.
My pleasure to be here.
Mohammed Ali is a security expert. He's joining us from our Kaduna Network Center. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on the program. Our Kaduna Network Center. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on the program.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Captain Aliyu Umar, retired National Security Resource and Solutions Options Consultant, former intelligence officer, is joining us from Lagos. Welcome to Tuesday Live. Let's go to Jos with His Excellency. Your Excellency, as bitter as this is, as quite disturbing as it is, in all the scenarios you have featured and you have rendered your voice, your line of thought, as first of all as the Governor of Plateau State and also the Chairman of the Northern State Governors Forum. And let's begin by saying the very last engagement was the forum's meeting in Kaduna, and a couple of resolutions were reached. Could you just maybe recap and what informed your line of decision? Could you just give us a recap?
Thank you very much. Once again, good evening, viewers. The meeting in Kaduna, the Northern Governors meeting in Kaduna, was informed first of all by the activities that happened during the NSAS. And I think when we had the NSAS movement, and before even it escalated down to the north, we had to summon a meeting, an emergency meeting in Kaduna, because within the period, there were notices being given, some issuing notices and saying all the southerners should vacate the north, and then the northerners should vacate from the south. And that was what informed us to call an emergency meeting to address some of these issues before they get out of hand. But as we were having the meeting, we also addressed the issues of the youth restiveness, the women, and also the other issues about traditional rulers, the involvement of traditional rulers in addressing the security of the nation. And so part of that meeting was what led to the formation of committees. And those committees were headed by, in some cases, the traditional rulers and some of them by governors. So, and then we gave a timeline. That was sometimes last year. We gave a timeline of February for the next meeting, which was going to be 2 days. And this meeting was to collect the reports from all the various committees, and also within that time to address some of the thorny issues, emerging issues at that time, at this time again. Now, this time, it was now the issue of the the herdsmen farmers problem that was now being a problem of southerners, a perceived problem of southern and northern Nigeria. So all those things were taken over by the meeting, and then we addressed those issues. And first of all, part of the resolution was that first we all agreed that we must put in measures in our various states together in synergy with traditional rulers to find ways of helping the federal government, working in synergy with the federal government in addressing some of these issues. The second aspect was also to use the role of traditional council effectively and also to address some of the fears of our southern counterparts and to work in synergy with them so that there will be no misconception about some of the issues that were coming, utterances that were coming both from traditional rulers, governors, and even leaders, respected leaders. And so that way, we agreed that we must have a dialogue with some of them to understand that this country is our country, that we should not need for ethnic profiling when it comes to crime. And since criminals are found in every tribe. And so when we do that, we come together and address holistically what are the crimes and also take the responsibilities as governors, as a government, where we think that it is our responsibility to address these issues. And part of the resolution also was the need because abduction were already getting very rampant. At the time that we were doing deliberations, the students were already abducted in Niger, and so we're trying to put measures. And immediately after the meeting, of course, then first the Kagara issue, and then the Jangabe. And so we realized that in the north, these issues were going to be very, very prevalent. And so what we did was to put heads together and to assist the federal government also to see how to address and protect our children in all their schools. And again, the issue of IDPs, because when we talk about the current crimes, what are we doing about those who are victims of those things? Victims of crisis, victims of ethno-religious crisis, victims of farmers' headers crisis, and victims of sort banditry. So what are we doing about them? We need to get a census of all of them. And those people are also aggrieved people. If they are still in IDP camps, we must find ways of relocating them back to their abodes, because that way they will also feel free and feel happy as Nigerians. And then we consider the issue of intra-border movements, because influx and then the porous nature of our border is allowing not only people move anyhow, but also allowing influx of arms and ammunition. You recall that we mentioned that if we gather or put our border properly, there will be no way people will be moving in and bringing arms of several kinds to people. It is when these arms are brought in, then you find different brands of crime, both banditry, religious crisis, farmers, herdsmen, the IPOP, and all militancy going on. All of them are doing it with arms. So you will see that a lot of arms, the influx of arms, must also be controlled. We mentioned also the actions of some vigilante groups. In some states, some vigilante groups feel they are above the law. And so what they do is extrajudicial killings. And so we agreed that all states should handle their vigilantes. Where they are useful, they can work with the police and security organization in addressing crime. But where they take extrajudicial steps, then definitely they are condemned, and we must provide the legal backing to protect such actions. And then our focus on agriculture and mining in the north. So we are moving back to agriculture and mining. So that in order to have that, we must have security in all our places. So to guarantee farming and mining, we must also guarantee that there is security for it. And that was why in the north we accepted the NLTP, the implementation of the NLTP, the National Livestock Transformation Plan, which of course we had a meeting yesterday under the office of the Vice President, and we all concluded on the final implementation of the NLTP. And it's interesting for you to know that in that NLTP, 20 states applied for it, 20 out of 36 states. And it is because of the misconception. And with proper analysis, proper explanation, even many states will come in to embrace the NLTP. That would have been a part of the solution to some of these herdsmen farmers issue that we are talking about. So with good understanding, we say sensitizations must go on, whilst those states that have applied for the NLTP should be given opportunity to start the implementation, the pilot schemes, so that it will address this issue of movements and we have completely a new way of life, both for farmers and also for the herdsmen. That will reduce the banditry. But at the end of the day, we also call on Mr. President to take firm action, very, very firm actions on some of this insecurity that is going on. I'm very happy I'm beginning to see the firm actions that are taking place in Zamfara today. And if we have that firm actions taking over, I think it will be good for the North, and not only for the North, for the all other parts of the country. But also my appeal I have made, and which I'm also going to make, is that while we are also addressing the release of those who are now abducted, let us also go back to those who are abducted and still are yearning for release. I talk specifically about the likes of Leah Sharibu. We've been doing that, especially in Plateau State, where they live, their parents are with me today. I think we must go back. If we take that action we are taking in Zamfara, let us move the same action and bring back our girls.
Excellency, I'm still on you. You have been very visible in your capacity as the chairman of the Northern State Governors Forum, and precisely on the 12th of December 2020, a release attributed to you after the ugly incident of the attack in Katsina State, that is Kankara precisely. You totally condemned and described it as an unfortunate incident, which is regrettable and intolerable. Now, one of the other very strong positions of the State Governors Forum in your last resolution was the resolve to put more efforts in enhancing the security and safety of all schools within their domain, and therefore urge the Nigerian security agencies to collaborate with the various state governments towards achieving this noble objective. As much as we know it's a security thing that requires a lot of intelligence, are you worried that despite all this, we are yet to hear that suspects have been engaged?
Well, of course, yes, I'm very much worried. I'm very much worried about that. And that was why when we had a meeting in Kaduna, first of all, we also appreciate as people in government that, yes, there is also capacity problem for the security. There's capacity problem because they've laid out their problems before us. They said, look, the number is insufficient. We also need more funding to buy equipments. And it was in addressing some of those problems that we all agreed to the idea of also supplementing some of it. And the supplementary part of it is the issue of the community policing, which we all agreed and is well funded, is now being funded by the federal government. And in some of the states, we all agreed also at the Northern Governors Forum that we cannot drive away some vigilante groups. So in most of the states, the vigilante groups are also very useful. So even if we cannot increase the number that we have in security, in terms of intelligence gathering, let us also use some of these, train some of these vigilante groups and use them. And more so, in the past, people were building schools without even fencing. So we realized that, yes, it is now obvious that all governments will go back to the issue of fencing boarding schools and providing security for boarding schools. You know, in our days, we used to have soldiers. We used to have soldiers in every school, and that was, I think, introduced by President Obasanjo when he was head of state. We used to have soldiers who were maintaining discipline and who were also overseeing the insecurity in all the schools. So in addition to that, we must, whether we like it or not, as governors, now be prepared to ensure that we fence all the boarding schools and also ensure that we have security for all boarding schools. Otherwise, we'll continue to have some of these kidnappings going on here and there. And then finally, we also hammered on the issue of prosecution, like you mentioned, that if people are not brought to book, definitely it will be seen that people commit criminality and they go away free. If we have them in some places, let us show evidence that they are being prosecuted and also they are jailed. They are jailed. That way, it will serve as a deterrent to others who are involved in it. And we also condemn the issue of completely and every time negotiations, because we advise on one kinetic, yes, and also non-kinetic. Non-kinetic in other crimes. Like, for instance, if you have a religious crisis, if you have famous others problem, you may use non-kinetic approach. But in terms of banditry, definitely we must have more of a kinetic approach. Otherwise, they're just saying less. They do the kidnapping and they go away, and tomorrow they are released. But where are the people? We must have those people, those culprits.
Yes, we hold it there for now. We'll come back to you. Now, I want to be done with the epicenter of all before we come to the studio here. Let's go to Kaduna, where Mohammed Ali is joining us from our network, Kaduna Network Center. Mohammed, listening to the governor of Plateau State speak, and in his capacity also as the chairman of the Northern State Governors Forum, this whole thing today is a pile-up from somewhere where it started to what it is now. How best, with the knowledge you have in security, can it be addressed besides the immediate, which is like spur of the moment reaction? If we don't look backward, bend backwards and take it from there, are we sure we'll head anywhere with it?
Thank you very much. Let me say, once to every nation comes a time to decide for truth or falsehood, for good or for evil. Having said that, painfully, the North is steadily but helplessly edging towards helplessness and lawlessness. And this lawlessness is a precursor to a failed state. Therefore, it has become incumbent for all hands to come on deck to see how best we can work together in order to salvage the ship from sinking. This must be done, and quickly too. And to address the issues of banditry, the economy of violence, which we generally refer to as kidnapping, I think there is a need for us to create a sort of partnership between public safety professionals, state governments, and school administrators. This, if done, will assist in facilitating collaborative and comprehensive approach towards tackling the menace of banditry and kidnapping in our schools, which, if not arrested immediately, has the potential to destroy our already prostrate educational system. So this is why everybody has to come on board and contribute his or her own quota towards solving this problem. But as His Excellency rightly said, people have been arrested. We only talk about the abductees and we celebrate their release. What about the culprits? What has been done to them? Time and again, we enter into negotiations. They release a few firearms, and then off they are allowed to go. A week or thereabout, they come back again. Because if we take the Kankara kidnap case as a case study, 334 students were kidnapped. After a while, negotiation was done, they were released. The arrowhead of that saga, one Awal Daudawa, who is an indigenous of Faskari local government in Katsina State, assisted and aided by his lieutenants, Idi Mainoti and Dankarami, who are indigenous of Zamfara State. They, about 5 weeks ago, presented 24 AK-47 to His Excellency Governor Matole under the pretext that they have accepted dialogue, they will key into amnesty, and they will abandon banditry and kidnapping. It's not up to 6 weeks that this has happened. And here we are in Jangebe, Talatu Mafara local government, where innocent schoolgirls were kidnapped in their hundreds, only for them to be returned in the early hours, in the wee hours of today, Tuesday. Now, to say the fact, Nigerians or Northerners in particular are actually traumatized by these happenings. And except something is done, and drastically too, will continue to face these problems. And the more gangsters are allowed to go into our schools, ransack everywhere and kidnap students, gradually our schools will become empty, and even the day schools, parents will be skeptical about sending their children to schools because government has either shown unwillingness or an apparent inability to stem the tide. And thirdly, I want to see a situation where the northern governors will speak with one voice, take a common position in order to end this scourge. But where certain governors will take a position, others will take a divergent position with different views, this in a nutshell is actually giving us cause for concern. And unfortunately, after the Jangebe kidnap, quite a number of state governors here in the north have decided to close their boarding school. That act in itself is defeatist because they are invariably indicating to these social malcontents that they are above the law or government is afraid of them. We must be prepared to take the fight to them, but we must not, for any reason, close school because some idiots are going into to kidnap our children. What we need to do is to beef up the security in those schools. What is presently happening? We don't have security in almost all the boarding schools because listeners must understand there is a difference between a security personnel or a security man and the traditional Megadi we used to know. The traditional Megadi's work is to only open gate and close. He has no business about intelligence gathering. He has no business about making any observation that will assist the cause of his work. And the Jangebe school in particular, the security man there is only one person that is about 70 years old. How can a 70-year-old man protect a school housing over 400 girls? So this invariably shows lack of seriousness on the part of the school administrators. There is no way one single old man can stay guard and overlook 400 students, even if it is in the daytime, not to talk of night. And by 8, such old people, they are already tired. By 8 p.m. he's fast asleep. What happens, he wouldn't know. So this is why the need for partnership with public safety professionals must be embraced, and quickly too, so that we will be able to safeguard the safety of our students in all their boarding schools in order for them to have a conducive atmosphere to face their studies.
Thank you so much, Mohammed Ali, for your thoughts so far. Well, back in the studio, Ojukwu, just in the first leg of this discussion last week, we looked copiously on the Safe School Initiative tied to the Safe School Declaration by the United Nations. And the UNICEF official president said Nigeria is signatory to this declaration. Positions to secure schools. Mohammed has touched on it briefly, where he had advocated the need for a public safety professionals, state governments, and schools to work hand in sync towards securing schools. Now, coming here, trying to gather inputs, I listened to a number of youths discussing, and they're like, what are we doing here? Let's just go to our locations, set up a group, kidnap, go to schools, kidnap, and they will settle you. So, judging from what His Excellency the Governor of Plateau State said and what he said, now, is it that the security architecture is overwhelmed?
Okay, thank you for having me here. The issue at stake is a grievous one. It is grave, and the nation should be in a mourning mood. As far as I'm concerned, we should be flying our flags at half-mast. We have grossly disappointed our children. I knew when I was 12, 13, 14, 18, I didn't pass through this kind of nonsense. Somebody mentioned that the northern states are traumatized. He hasn't hit it. Those traumatized are the victims of this kidnap, abduction. In the past 7 years, we've lost like 300 students. Over 300 schools destroyed. And about 1,000 plus kidnapped by criminal elements. What happens to the minds of these young ones? They'll feel so disappointed that society, adults, the elite, have not lived up to their expectations, and they are looking forward to becoming adults, and they lose themselves. So they feel disappointed. They may tend to withdraw from school, and that's a minus for us. Because this is a country with over 13 million out-of-school children. Those who happen to find their ways to school, either by scholarship or their parents send them there, are now being further traumatized by criminal elements. These girls just came out from detention. The story has not been told. We just saw them on television wearing hijab. That's not the true story. We need to look into their minds. They need to face psychologists and psychiatrists. Some may have been raped, defiled in that place.
So that's why I asked the question.
Yes.
Is it that the security architecture is overwhelmed?
I'm coming there. It is a collective responsibility. There's no way you can post policemen to every school in Nigeria. It cannot happen. It was not meant to be so, and it can never be so. The schools are not military institutions or police institutions. You may have one policeman, two policemen. That is nothing. My friend mentioned public partnership. The communities have to be involved in securing the schools within their communities. Because by and large, the greater population of students in a particular school must be indigenous of that area. So their parents have a responsibility to their security. And so they must partner with the school authorities. That's why I have parent-teacher association. They must work together to secure the schools. And you cannot secure schools. I'm still coming to the security issue. You cannot secure schools if they don't have fences. No perimeter fencing. Nothing as a deterrent. Nothing to delay the incursion of a criminal. You just build the school as if it's a big house. You put children there, they're in boarding house. They're going through a lot. Now the police, which I know very well, can only assist, come to help if you are willing to be helped. How are you willing? You provide the basic infrastructure. Provide the partnership. That's what we do, community policing. You bring part of your own, we bring our own. Because the police is already overstretched. The manpower is limited. It's one policeman to over 600 Nigerians. There's no way you can put policemen in schools, 2, 3. We don't have the manpower. Neither can the military. It's not their job. So schools are civil institutions, civil facilities to be policed by the people themselves. So it's not issue of the security being overwhelmed. Okay. But by and large, we need to identify, we have a risk. We have a problem right now. I've mentioned figures, people who have died. It's there somewhere, and it is still, the president made some statement today, but let's watch. Let's just pray it works. People have been monetized. They have weaponized it. Pick girls, pick boys. These are soft targets. They are vulnerable. They are defenseless. They can be picked. You pick them, you get 20 million, 40 million. Why do I have to go and spend my time in the market trying to earn 100 a day? So there's so much money there. That's a risk. We need to look at that risk, identify it, assess it, analyze it, and look for measures collectively to stop it. Apply those measures and we may have a solution in our hands.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to Zamfara, where Dr. Danjibo Nathaniel, President, Society for Peace and Practice, is joining us from. Doctor, good to see you on the program tonight.
For inviting me. Good to see you too.
The epicenter of all this for now is Zamfara State. Thank goodness the 279 girls have been released and a couple of activities have taken place. The president has made pronouncements all towards surmounting this challenge. What is the atmosphere, the situation like in Zamfara State as we speak?
Well, thank you very much. I just happened to be in Zamfara by accident. Came into Zamfara yesterday evening from Katsina. I'm actually on a small program on small arms and light weapons coordinated by the Presidential Committee on Small Arms. I came to Zamfara and unfortunately 2 days ago while we were passing through Talata Mafara, the atmosphere certainly it's one of great disappointment. I must say that if you had gone around Zamfara State and interacted with some people, the conclusion certainly by a lot of people on the street who I think are more concerned than people in government and politicians, and perhaps those of us who are analyzing the situation, is the fact that there is a failure completely in the architecture of governance, and that includes security, that includes social safety networks. I have listened keenly to what the chairman of the Northern Governors Forum has said. Now, I also listened before I left my hotel room to what the National Security Advisor has said. And what you get to hearing, it's more of disappointment for me because, one, it's like the Nigerian government is only interested in chasing the ball after it's been kicked. And what you now hear, when you begin to hear that the president is now more determined than ever, you begin to ask yourself, was the president not determined before these kinds of things happen? Well, these are not the kinds of statements that we should be making. They further, in a sense, make us become discouraged about the whole situation. Now, I've also listened to the former commissioner of police. There's a great dilemma. If you are asking parents to go and secure school, with what? Are they going to go there with hose and sticks? Are they going to go? The whole thing is about the total collapse of our security architecture. And I think that we need to come up with some new blueprints. Today we are talking about safety for schools. Now, are we only concerned about safety for schools? If there is a blueprint, a security blueprint that secures the entire nation, we don't need to be talking about security for schools. Now, we'll be finishing the discussion on how to secure schools. The next moment, it will be how to secure churches and mosques. The next moment, it will be how to secure families at home. And I think we need to go back to the drawing board to really ask ourselves. This, for me, is a failure of early response to some early warning signs, as we say. Where I work with the Institute for Peace and Strategic Studies of the University of Ibadan. Now, we had these early warning signs. This is not the first time that schools have been attacked, and it begins to call to your imagination, what exactly do we want to do at this moment in time? And as far as I'm concerned, I think there's some kind of, our elderly person said, from Kaduna, I think it is more of an economic thing than it is. And I want to conclude that from my analysis and from my suspicion, those who carry out these heinous acts, if you heard from what had happened in Kagara, what has happened here in Zamfara, it leaves people with the imagination that a lot of people in government are perhaps part of this conspiracy to continue to terrorize the Nigerian state and to make here, as Nigerians. But that's not the issue. The issue is that what are we actually doing? You know, the chairman Northern Governors Forum talked about border, the polarization of, the porosity of our borders. I had just had a training, asking security agents who had been working at the borders. At our own borders, do we even have sniffer dogs? They don't have. At our own borders, do we have computerized vehicles? The police, border police people will tell you they don't have. We should go beyond this traditional, thinking of, security. If we know that our borders are porous and the arms are coming from within our borders, I think that that's just one aspect. What about the arms that have been produced within the country? What about the arms that have been, leaking from security agencies? These are the things that we should be, asking ourselves. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people in Zamfara here are more or less, like all concerned Nigerians should be, in a period of mourning. Yes, we're rejoicing that the young girls have been released, but the question is, who next? Where next?
Thank you so much. I hear our guest in Lagos, Captain Aliyu Umar, National Securities Resource and Solution Options Consultant and former military intelligence, has joined us now. Good to have you on Tuesday Live tonight. Tonight, what's your quick response, as much as we are looking for solutions, early response to warning signals? If we act fast, what happens? If we don't act fast, what happens? Captain Leo, you're not hearing me? Okay, I take the question again. From your perspective, what's your reaction to early response and warning signals? If we act fast, what happens? If we don't act fast, what happens? It looks the signals we lost. Well, we are still looking at securing schools in Nigeria, and at some point we'll take a couple of reports. I will take some reports now. The first tonight is coming from Katsina. Well, let's quickly go to Plateau. Your Excellency, back to you. We've gone actions, but you hinged on a couple of things, and I believe if this handled clearly, much of this will not take place. Agriculture was one of the things you hinged on. I remember vividly one of the concerns of this government across board has been the recharge of the Lake Chad region, and also diversification of the economy from just dependence on oil but on agriculture and other produce. If this is sorted out, I imagine we will be in the next 4 or 5 years.
Many. Oh, okay. Are you coming back to me?
Let me just take the question again, Excellency. I'm saying that one of the things you raised as the resolution by the Northern State Governors Forum was the need to reinvigorate the agricultural sector. And I said one of the concerns of this administration across board has been the need to recharge the Lake Chad Basin and also diversify the nation's economy beyond just looking at just oil, but other areas, mostly agriculture. And I say, if this is achieved, do you see this happening even in the next 5 years?
First of all, before I answer that question, you know that in the North, the vision of our leaders was, first of all, education. And they believe that with education, you will be able to take people from poverty, you take people from illiteracy, and you even diseases and insecurity. And that was why even before we had the meeting in Kaduna, I had to visit some key institutions established by the late Sadona Sir Ahmad Bello of blessed memory. Why was he doing that? He was establishing this for people to be educated. And once you are educated, most of these challenges, you will be able to handle some of these challenges. I went to Ahmad Bello University. I went to the College of the Agricultural Research to also look at what they are doing because we're talking about agriculture. I went to also Kaduna Polytechnic, one of the institutions established by Sir Ahmadu Bello for providing technical support to the civil service. And today, most of the engineers that came out from the north also went through through those institutions. Why did we do that? Is to emphasize the issue of education, which is very, very paramount. Because if you are talking about issues like that, you must also look at the background of what you have in the north. We introduced in the north the issue of the Amajiri system, and then taking them back to their various states and reintegrating them and educating them. Now, you talk about this, you will now be focused in addressing some of the issues that we are talking about in terms of development, because security is very key, like you mentioned. I know that in the inception of this regime, President Muhammad Buhari had a session, a summit, where all the presidents of Chad, the Niger, and the Lake Chad, Plateau was part of the component of the Lake Chad agreement, And so all the governors that were into this were all invited. Now the scheme started. And what was it? Is to recharge Lake Chad. Well, I'm not in a position to establish all other difficulties that went along in addressing some of these issues. But I also tell you that the government had a passion in whatever was going to do to recharge Lake Chad. Because some of these insecurities that came part of the background to Boko Haram was the issue of Lake Chad. Was the issue of the Lake Chad basin. And so because of the shrinking of the Lake Chad, a lot of activities, farming, fishing, and everything was no longer there. And so people were thrown out of business. And because they were thrown out of business, you find people engaging in a lot of criminal activities. But I must emphasize, as far as I know that this government had that great passion in addressing the issue of Lake Chad. And perhaps if that issue was addressed, but in addressing Lake Chad, it is not only talking to Chadians, talking to Niger. France was also involved. And so these are questions, I think, for National Security Advisor to answer. Is beyond for now my scope, but only to tell you that I know for sure that this government was very, very serious on the issue of the recharging of Lake Chad, which would have gone a long way. And then two, in addition to what I was saying, these forests, attention to be given to forests. Today, when people do kidnap, they run to the forest. Now, if we're able to man these forests very well, we will not have people kidnapping a large number of people down to the forest. What are we doing to man the forest? Because when they move there, the forests are all, most of these forests are owned by the federal government. And so if we are going to ensure that we man the forest, kidnappers will not have where to go. You can't take 500 people and keep in a city, in a hostel in a city, and you won't say that people will not know that, but that you are keeping them there. But if you take them to the forest, and part of why we are talking about the forest was what introduced the idea of the NLTP. I'm sorry that I'm bringing this part as part of it. The NLTP agenda was very, very comprehensive. It was also dealing with insecurities like that we must also take care of the forest. And that led to the formation or the creation of the agro rangers, who started in the last regime. But only very few of them were trained. If we are doing like Kenya, we have a lot of them, the agro rangers trained and equipped. I know I have some agro rangers in my state, and I know the kind of equipment they have. But for me, they are inadequate. But if you move in, like we said about policing, I've been to Kenya, I've been to Netherlands, I've seen what they do about addressing the issue of forests, of their forests. And so let's adopt the same thing. Now, when we adopt the same thing, because security can never be over in a country. I know America, as sophisticated as they are, they can't say that there is no insecurity in America. So it's not something that will be addressed in one day. But what I am appealing is that the ones that we start, if we know we developed the ideas, let us learn how to implement them. And while we leave the rest and we do it gradually.
We'll come back when the signals are restored. Quickly, I would take some reports. I hear the reports now already. Let's begin with the report from Katsina.
Prior to the abduction and subsequent rescue of the students of Government Science Secondary School Kankara, academic activities were being run smoothly at schools in Katsina State. Though the incident interrupted the academic calendar as both primary and secondary schools were closed to enable authorities map out strategies to secure all schools for conducive academic activities in the state. While security operatives in collaboration with the state government and other stakeholders are re-strategizing to guard against future occurrence of such incidents, authorities in Katsina directed beginning from this week, male boarding schools should resume academic activities at any of the nearby day schools in their locality.
Student of boarding secondary school comes from one village or the other. And in most of these villages or cities or towns, there are day secondary school around. So students are now allowed to go to nearby day secondary school and start schooling, pending when the situation or security situation improves in Katsina State.
So I didn't see any problem in the school, but that's only one thing. I have seen some security nearby gates enter the school. I interview with them how the work is going on. They say the work is going on fine. I am very, very happy for how the government opened the school. We are bringing our children now because of the security.
As security operatives intensify effort in securing boarding schools in Katsina for normal academic activities to resume, a prominent religious leader, Yakubu Musa, emphasized the need for intensive prayers to seek God's intervention on the security challenges in the country.
A riga yin addu'a ta musamman akan wannan bala'i don musiba ce, jarrabawa ce.
We need to continue praying over the insecurity challenges for God to bring it to an end.
With the present situation, only boarding secondary schools operated by security agencies like Command Secondary School will resume normal academic activities using its infrastructure while all female boarding schools remain closed.
Our next stop in reports is the one from Kaduna State.
The North has peculiar challenges of insecurity with huge losses on human lives, economy and total well-being of the people. The more worrisome is on the education as abduction of students continue to jeopardize school enrollment, especially the girl child. From Chibok to Kankara, Kagara and Jangegbe, the story is of tears and sorrow.
For the last few days or 10 days back, I didn't find it very easy in my life.
I was not happy.
In the face of these challenges, the northern governors have come to the conclusion of saying enough is enough. At recent high-level engagement in Kaduna, the governors with federal government support have taken far-reaching initiatives, working with all stakeholders to put an end to criminality in the region.
At the same time, we are confronting the various dimensions of security challenges that continue to slow down the emancipation of our people from poverty and economic deprivation. The government will continue to deal with insurgents, bandits, kidnappers, and other criminals who constitute a threat to innocent citizens across the country.
Amidst the fears and despairs of the moment, we have a chance to offer hope and buoy up the spirit of our people.
We must not fail our people. We will not fail our people, inshallah.
Although a cross-section of Nigerians say they are not happy with the frequent cases of adoption, they repose confidence in the government towards tackling the challenges.
The fundamental problem is that, you see, it have a repercussion effect, whereby it will affect the psychology, not only even the parent, even the pupils, to be sent to schools. Then what will be the future of our educational development of the country?
In Kaduna State, one of the important programs to deliver safe school learning environment is infrastructure upgrade for security and well-being of students and teachers.
We continue the conversation, and like we said earlier, our phone lines will be displayed on the screen. You can make your call and go to the point and be responsible in you making your call. Please turn down the volume of the television set. Also, our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA is up. You can send in your tweets and we'll react to them. Quickly, let's go to Kaduna, where Mohammed Ali is joining us at our network center. Mohammed, clearly this whole thing, at times you look at it, you ask yourself, taking responsibility and passing the buck appears to have been one of the problems. You hit on it briefly. It looks as though from the onset, people in their various silos or area of responsibility were not taking responsibility but passing the buck. So how do we assuage and take care of this? Original signals are not up now. Well, let me parry that question to you now.
Yes. Now, in the issue of security of lives and property in Nigeria, the government has a role, the people also have their role. That is what the Constitution says in Section 24, that every Nigerian citizen is obligated to assist law enforcement agencies in maintaining law and order. So the buck is for everybody. There is no way the police alone can police the entire landmass of Nigeria, 200 million people. No way. That is why in many communities, you have vigilante groups, neighborhood watch groups. In the case of school, that teachers should be trained as school safety officers. It recommends there should be guards and the police, as the case may be. But the involvement of teachers has been recognized by our initiative. Now, the police has been emphasizing community involvement in their policing. Somebody must play a role in his policing. And that's why, even of recent, the police has been visiting schools, gingering them, talking to them, and then using the instrumentality of a program we call the Police Campaign Against Cultism and Other Vices. We are now engaging students to play a role in their personal safety, personal security, to avoid cultism, avoid vices that will destroy them today and even their future. So police is getting involved and getting the students involved themselves. Everybody has to play a role, so that nobody will be the weak link in the chain. But when you say policing, to police the school, if the police is not there, they will not go to school. They will miss it.
That's why I asked the question.
Yes.
Taking responsibility. For instance, a culprit is arrested by the police. The police is supposed to proceed with prosecution and investigation. But at times you hear order from above. Is it not part of the problem?
Now,
where we are right now.
Yeah, in the police, you do what you can defend. Because for every action or inaction, somebody will ask you a question. If not now, tomorrow. So every police officer is personally responsible for his acts or his omission. If you listen to superior orders, even the United Nations Code of Conduct for Law Enforcement Officials says no to superior orders in doing a wrong thing. So if you do a wrong thing, you are personally liable, responsible for it. And no officer wants to be held accountable for a wrongdoing inspired by a wrong directive. You have a right, even under the new Police Act, you have a right to say no to an unlawful order If an order is unlawful, manifestly unlawful, you are not duty bound to. Who gave you an unlawful order knows that when the chips are down on his ass, he will pull off and allow you to carry the mess. Nobody wants to be in that situation. So officers do what they're supposed to do, and those who fail to do what they ought to do, they face the music, because the police that I know does not tolerate misconduct. So if somebody has been arrested for a criminal offense, the due process is to do an investigation. If you get enough evidence, pass it over to the prosecution. In this case, it involves a lawyer and then the law courts. The outcome cannot be determined by the police. The job of the police is not to convict somebody, but to present evidence before a third party, this time around, a court. So the court decision is final on that issue.
Okay, we'll sustain the conversation after the break. Stay with us.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest asset the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
Are you a secondary school student preparing for JAMB or post-UTME examination, and you have spent so much time and money attending extramural classes and still can't get a hang of the most difficult to understand subjects? Worry no more, as we have brought you the easy-to-use learning and teaching app known as the School Aid app. The School Aid app is designed to help senior secondary school students study on their own and master the art of solving the most difficult secondary school examination questions using graphic, audio, and visual tutorials to help you break down and solve brain-twisting questions, as we have simplified the learning process for you with the option for you to even test and score yourself to improve on your confidence and question answering skills. Just download the School Aid app from your Apple or Android Play Store, register, and begin to acquire the right knowledge your own way. Visit www.schoolaidapp.com. School Aid app. We aid you to examination success.
The second wave of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic is upon us.
To safeguard lives of our people, the government has signed the health protection regulations, which makes wearing a face mask mandatory in public places.
Wear a mask. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Wash your hands regularly with soap and clean water. And use hand sanitizer.
COVID-19 is real. Do not be infected. Do not spread it. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned, and Securing Our Schools Part 2 is the focus tonight, and we are being joined from Plateau, Kaduna, Lagos, and indeed Abuja. In Plateau, the governor of the Plateau State is our guest there, in his capacity also as the chairman of the Northern State Governors Forum. Let's do Kaduna now, where Mohammed Ali is joining. Mohammed, the question I asked you when we lost signals was, taking responsibility and passing buck appears to have been the problem over time. And like I said, this whole thing did not start today. It began from somewhere. But largely, it has been the case of passing the buck instead of taking responsibility and acting on it the way it should be.
Taking responsibility is very necessary for anybody who is given attacks. But most importantly, I think our security agencies used to be at the receiving end. Everybody complains about the police, about the army, the Air Force, etc. We must understand that security is a collective responsibility. Everybody has a role to play. How many times are members of the public passing credible intelligence to members or information to members of the security agencies with which they can work upon and nip certain crimes in the bud? Most of the time, people don't pass information. Worse still, the present trend of kidnapping is blooming because right amongst us, we have what I regard as syndicate managers who are living within members of the public, who are the ones passing information to these kidnappers. I've seen Mr. A in the bank, he has withdrawn so and so amount, and issues like that. They give them directions as to when and how they can come to your residence or when to meet you on the road and accost you and arrest you and kidnap you. So these are some of the things that are happening. People are not ready and willing to divulge information to security agencies. So if we cannot inform the police of happenings within our locality, policemen are not magicians. They are human beings like everybody. So they need to be informed of happenings within certain localities. That is when they can act on it. But when we keep information to ourselves and pretend nothing is happening, I think we should not be putting blames on the security agencies. So people have to be willing and ready to come forward and give credible intelligence information so that the security agencies will work on them. And secondly, we've been talking about kidnapping and the issue of the abductees, but even the Governors Forum, during their last meeting in Kaduna, I don't think they have resolved to or agree that whoever is arrested should be executed. Some of the states here in the north, their houses of assembly have passed a law that prescribe death penalty for kidnappers. But we are yet to see any state that has implemented that. And not that these criminals are not being arrested. Even yesterday here in Kaduna at Igabi local government, 2 kidnappers and their syndicate manager were arrested by the army. But what has happened? There is no need to keep them. They should be wasted. Until we begin to implement punishment, certainly some of these things will continue to grow. And let me say this. Crime is to be expected in every human society, since humans are never perfect. But the failure of justice in any human society is more dangerous to society than crime. There is punishment. Things will continue to happen, and that will not be to our good.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Zamfara, where Dr. Danjibo Nathaniel is still joining us from. Doctor, you have seen the discussion so far, and the last question I asked was the issue of early response and warning signs. But clearly, if you go to sustainable forest management, when you talk about to manage for tomorrow, insecurity is a two-way thing. The Kaduna man said some governors from the north, on hearing the latest development, closed down all boarding schools. To him, is defeatist. We are looking for solutions here. Now, with all these developments, what actually should be the best way forward, given the fact that you're in Zamfara and you're there on a mission all related to what we are doing. Looking for solutions, how best can this be surmounted as much as government is taking steps to nip it in the bud?
Well, thank you very much. First, let me go back to the issue of early warning and early response. I mean, crime does not just take place, and then when you have a trend analysis of crime, it happens and happens and happens. It means that somehow there is a failure of response. I mean, if you take Zamfara, for example, this is not new. Barely a few months after you started the Boko Haram thing, the bandits who took over the forest of Dansado, for example, actually released a video some 8 years back saying that, look, they were going to unleash terror, and the terror they were going to unleash, Boko Haram, was going to be a child's play. And then this was on videos, and people just saw that and then ignored that. I'm talking about people from the communities, people at the local government level, people at the state, and of course at the federal government level. Presently, I mean, a few days ago when we were to leave Sokoto for Katsina, we were actually advised not to go through, Isa, which was very short, some 2 hours to get to Katsina, because we were told that people there move around with AK-47, broad daylight. I mean, that's to say that we're moving towards anarchy. It shows that, perhaps there is an absence of government, that should maintain law and order. I mean, we're becoming like Northern Mali, we're becoming like Somalia, and nobody's taking responsibility. And so, the issue of forest, yes, certainly. I mean, the chairman Northern Governors Forum had talked about it. Of course, it is not all states that have forest reserves, but we have forests virtually cutting across several states. What have we done with those forests? That is where the bandits have taken refuge. But I mean, I was a bit surprised because when we were passing through Kankara, Jangebe, for example, I could see maybe from a distance of 20 kilometers and maybe beyond that. And so you were beginning to ask yourself, for example, why was it possible for a group of bandits to come to a school, march young people across more or less what you can say semi-desert, and nobody did anything? Communities, I'm sure they would have gone through communities. Nobody said anything. With the GSMs that we have, nobody was alerting anybody. I mean, that for example, for me, it calls for several questions. Is it that people have lost faith in government? Is it that people have lost faith in themselves? I mean, these are multifaceted questions that we may have to respond to. But as far as I know, timely intervention, I'm talking about, for example, intelligence. If you gather information, what do we do with the information that we have gathered? I believe the security agencies have been working. I believe the security agencies have been, writing memos about security situations virtually in every state. But who is taking action? Nobody is taking any action. I can tell you, maybe from my little experience, where security agents would have even written reports about impending dangers. And somebody who should read the reports will refuse to read the reports maybe until 2 weeks after, and until the deed is done. And then we come back and we begin to make some armchair analysis, just like we're doing right now. Now, who should be responsible? We say naively that it is the responsibility of government to provide security, to protect lives and property. That is a responsibility from the ages of the Leviathan states, from the ages of the social contract theory. That is what we should know government should do. So let's begin to ask some little questions.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I hear our first caller tonight is calling from Mina, Musa Schweib. Is it still on? Hello, Musa.